What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Down Once More. Matt here, and this is episode 99 of the podcast. Next week is going to be episode 100 on podcast feeds. That's right. YouTube, we passed 100 a couple months ago because we had a few exclusives on there, and then the Last of Us reviews were exclusive on YouTube, except for the first episode was pulled into one of these. But episode 100 on podcast feeds, which I'm considering our official episode 100, is coming next week. And what we have planned is Brad is going to join the podcast, and we are going to do our draft of musical intros. So the best musical intro songs, that will be coming on next week's episode, if everything falls into place. We had planned to record that episode last week, but we had an 80-mile-per-hour windstorm in my city, and I was without power for Wednesday through Friday, and then had friends in town, Rachel and Steven, friends of the pod, who joined for my Succession mega recap and the Fast 10 review. They were in town and hung out with them Friday night, Beer Fest Saturday night, hung out with them last night, Sunday night. So I actually didn't watch the House of the Dragon Season 2 recap until tonight, Monday night, when I'm recording this. And let's just say I have zero self-control when it comes to staying off social media to avoid spoilers. I had planned to stay off and avoid them. And then I went on one thing and saw something spoiled instantly. And then I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to go for it. I'm not going to try anymore. There's no point. And this was another thing. This episode got leaked like a week ahead of time, I think, because I had seen they aired the finale at Comic-Con, and some people had recorded and been putting clips and stuff online. So this, I'd been getting spoilers. As soon as I opened X, House of the Dragon spoilers were everywhere, which should come as no surprise, as I've talked about on here multiple times. Book readers have just been spoiling shit left and right all over the place anyways. So I get it. You read the story, you know what's coming on. But as we talked about in here before, George R. R. Martin said the book canon and the show canon, two different things. They're kind of their own world, if you were. And so you can enjoy them for what they are on their own. So this episode is primarily going to be House of the Dragon, Season 2 finale, episode 208, The Queen Who Ever Was, recap of that. So, if that doesn't interest you, go watch one of our 98 other episodes we have on here, and I almost guarantee you that we have something that will make you laugh or that you will enjoy, find fun. Go ahead, like, comment, share, rate, subscribe, 5 stars on everything. Give us all the thumbs up on YouTube, all that fun stuff. I'm doing my pandering and begging here at the beginning of this episode, just being upfront with it. Let's get into it. House of the Dragon finale review. So I mentioned, obviously spoilers are going to be following in this. If I'm reviewing and discussing the episode, I'm gonna spoil it if you haven't seen it. So you haven't seen it, don't watch this. I mentioned that I saw spoilers online. The other thing that I saw online was an insane amount of discourse about how this episode and this finale sucked. That was the majority, overwhelming opinion that I was seeing, that it was boring, that it left you hanging, it was all set up and no finish. And so I went into this with super low expectations because of that. Kind of already disappointed. And long story short, I get it. I'm not that as mad about it as a lot of other people online. I think my biggest problem is something that I saw someone else say, that final shot of the penultimate episode last week, Rhaenyra with Syrax and what was behind her? Syrax, Vermithor, and Silverwing behind her. Like, that shot should have ended season 2. Like, I get you wanted to do more to set up season 3, but that was the perfect ending shot of the season. And I think Game of Thrones from what I remember, it's been so long since I did a rewatch, that a lot of these shows would have the penultimate episode is the epic episode of the season. And then the final episode of the season is kind of setting up more where the next season will go and getting your cliffhanger from there. So we had that. The penultimate episode was epic, fantastic, and ended with that amazing shot. I do think this series as a whole is absolutely beautifully shot and it looks fantastic. So I'm a big fan of the cinematography and the directors. They're doing great work on this show. And I don't think this ruined the season, the episode, the series. People are saying it did or that they're out on it because of this. You need to grow up. Like, this is building to something. They have the story that they're wanting to tell. They know what they're doing with it. Yeah, we might not agree with it, but this is nowhere near the fall off that Game of Thrones did. And like my hot take is, even though it was rushed towards the end and they should have fleshed out things more, and there were threads that just remained just hanging there loose and frayed that I wish they would have wrapped up and kind of sewed in, tucked in those ends nicely. It gets more hate than I feel like it needs. And it doesn't completely tarnish the legacy of that show. Like some people make it seem like you can still enjoy it for what it is. That saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Weird ass saying. There's some fucked up sayings from back in the day. But that's how I feel with this. Like, this wasn't what everyone wanted. I do think they did it a disservice. The teasers for the episode made it seem like there was going to be an epic battle, which it will just be in season 3, which they're anticipating will be coming out in 2026. The 2 years between seasons is rough. We are getting less episodes of television on these series than we did before. Like before and in the past, you'd get 24 episode seasons. You'd get at least 12 episode seasons. Now we're getting 8 episode seasons and you're waiting 2 years in between. And that 2 years seems brutal. House of the Dragon is on that echelon that I'm not going to drop off, but that's what, as I talked about in previous weeks, that's what happened to me with a lot of the Netflix series, is that I'd get into them, I'd enjoy it, I'd love the season. The Netflix has the danger of it drops all at once, so you'd binge it in a weekend, and then there's nothing for 2-3 years. Like Stranger Things was one of the biggest culprits of that. And so that's what House of the Dragon is bigger, and where it is spread over the 8 weeks, so you have a couple months of living in that world with those characters. And I had heard season 1 hits better on a rewatch than when you can binge it. So there is that as well, when you have that kind of foundation already and you can binge it and just appreciate new things and the build that the season takes, which I'll be curious to see if season 2 kind of hits those notes. For me, but that's what Ryan Condal had said, that a couple things came out in interviews after this episode. He had said season 3 they plan on filming next year and they're targeting release in 2026, which, like I said, hate that long wait. And the plan is to end with season 4. So we got 2 more episodes of this. We're halfway through the story that House of the Dragon is planning on telling, which that part of it I don't have a problem with. You are working off of one book. You do have kind of a set story that you're telling, and so the conclusion. And I'm a big fan of not dragging it further than you need to. We had in the lead up to this episode, HBO had their kind of clip reel of teasers for upcoming shows. And a lot of them I'm really excited about. We have The Penguin coming out. That comes out in September. I think 18th, 19th is when the first episode of that premieres. We have next year in 2025, we have White Lotus Season 3. We have the It prequel series, Welcome to Derry, which I really like the new It movies with Bill Skarsgård. I thought they were really good and really kind of inventive horror movies, a good adaptation of the Stephen King novels. From what I've been told, I'll be honest, I didn't read those Stephen King novels. If you notice, there's a trend on some of these things. I've not watched the show, not read the books before watching the shows or the movies. I think part of that is growing up, it was you couldn't watch the movie until you read the book. So Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, the Chronicles of Narnia books. Notice the other trend there, Christian fantasy. But you couldn't watch the movie until you read the book. And there's a lot of people like, you need to read the book first. The book is so much better than the movie. I don't doubt that, but that is the exact reason why I don't want to read the book first. I want to go enjoy it. Like, the movie is almost always going to be worse than the books. The exception to that, I feel like Lord of the Rings, yeah, there's parts that they cut that I wish would have been in there, but overall, I feel like Lord of the Rings, that movie trilogy, it keeps the core and the heart and the story, and it is as close to perfect of an adaptation as you're going to get. Now they cut storylines, themes like the Scouring of the Shire and other things like that I kind of wish would have been in there, but I get it. You're limited on time. You're doing what you're doing. And I've said I don't think they should remake Lord of the Rings, but the only exception to that would be if you're going to do it as a series so that you can get 10 hours to tell one of the books instead of a 3 or 4 hour thing. So you're having more time to kind of flesh it out and really dive in to those storylines and plot lines. But I digress. So, closing out that thought before I dive into it, I think, yeah, absolutely read the books. The books are almost always better, but do it after you watch the series or the show. Don't ruin the visual medium is its own thing. If you're constantly finding things to compare it to and hold it up against, then you're just going to be disappointed. And kind of in that vein, another teaser that we got was for The Last of Us Season 2. Now, I did kind of a video on here of how I felt like kind of predictions and a way HBO could lay out Season 2 of The Last of Us, having played The Last of Us Part 2, the game, and kind of everything out there. So go check it out on YouTube or on the podcast feeds. I'll try to link it in the video. But that's one thing that from the teaser, it doesn't look like they're going the route I predicted. It looks like we're going to be getting a lot more of the video game in Season 2 of the show than I thought. Because originally they said it was going to be split up into multiple seasons, which I still think it will. The second game is too massive to all wrap up into one season. There's so much that happens in it. I still think it will be split up into minimum of 2 seasons, if not 3, and it's going to be interesting to see what we get with it. I'm excited for it. That's not till 2025. I think it'll probably be fall 2025, but we'll see, because I think they just wrapped filming not too long ago. In the teaser, we got some shots of Joel, Ellie, Clickers, Dina. We got Catherine O'Hara, who may be playing a new character for the show. I'm not sure why I'm doing all this inflection in my voice. But Catherine O'Hara of lots of Home Alone fame and Schitt's Creek fame, that she's going to play a part in this. We see Jeffrey Wright most likely reprising his role from the video game. He had a part in The Last of Us Part 2, most likely playing the same character. I'm a big Jeffrey Wright fan, what he does. My only thing is Bella Ramsey, they don't look like they aged that much in The Last of Us Part 2. There is a distinct kind of maturity that happens and growth and aging up that happens to Ellie between the 2 video games. I think there's like 5 years in between, and Bella Ramsey just doesn't look like they aged up that much in between. But hey, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to recap it on here, and that's what you're going to get. So buckle down. And the other thing that I initially started talking about this to bring up is we got the preview for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is the next Game of Thrones, the Westeros world series that is going to be coming to HBO, and that's going to come out in 2025. And that's based on the Dunk and Egg stories by George R.R. Martin. So Sir Duncan and Aegon Targaryen, who is his squire. And the timeline that I saw was that this takes place roughly 100 years after House of the Dragon and roughly 100 years before Game of Thrones. So that's the next World of Game of Thrones series that's in development at HBO, and that's coming out in 2025. I saw something that said George R.R. Martin acknowledged there's like 7 spinoffs coming, like 5 live action and then 2 animated ones, which is insane. And I'm all for it. Like, get that bag, George R. R. Martin. But at the same time, finish writing the damn books. Although I'm not suffering as much as other book readers who started when they first came out and they've been waiting like 5 years in between each novel. I haven't even finished the third book yet, confession. So that's on my list of things to do. Now that I'm 15 minutes into this episode, now I will get into the kind of recap, kind of vibes, feelings on this episode and where it went. I did notice the intro we had with the theme song. There was just a whole gaggle of dragons at the end of it. All of it. So kind of showing all the new dragon riders that we have, all the dragons that are mustered. I didn't count them all. I'm not sure if it's all the dragons that we know about and that exist in the series now, but I did like that. Like I said, I like that the tapestry keeps growing and we keep seeing more there. It was an interesting way to start the episode with Tywin Lannister meeting with the Triarchy, trying to get them to help take out the Sea Snakes blockade so that they can start getting provisions and everything to King's Landing again. They're going back and forth. The Triarchy is negotiating with them and basically saying that they want the Stepstones. They want to be able to rule in the Stepstones. That's part of their price. And they say that Tywin's going to have to convince the Admiral Lohar, the captain of their fleet, to agree to fight with them if he wants them to agree, because the men there really respect Admiral Lohar, and so Tywin needs to win them over. And then she comes up and she tells Tywin that she won't fight with a man who cannot beat her, and he asks, beat her at what? She smiles, and then we get cuts. One thing we had here, the cutting and going back and forth. The first one didn't happen for a little bit, but there was just an insane number of cuts to Rhaena running through the mountainside by the Eyrie, looking for the wild dragon, and that lasted like 2-second scenes cutting to her. And I get it. She is out here. She's progressively getting dirtier. Her face is dirty. She's parched for water. She's getting for water and just wandering through the wilderness looking for this dragon. I get that. I get where it's going. We didn't need 8 fucking cuts to Rhaena this episode just in the mountainside for half a second. The half a second does nothing. Like, the fuck are we doing? I get you're trying to say and display that's been a long time. Pointless. That was the most frustrating part about this finale for me. How many times we cut to Rhaena in the mountainside, in the countryside for 2 seconds. Dumb. We have Aemond and Vhagar looking over a burning city that they said was Sharp Point. Looking over Sharp Point that they had burned and taken out because Aemond was pissed that Rhaenyra has new dragon riders now and kind of lashing out on the people. It's been a long week, guys. Like I said, no power last week for 3 nights. It was 100 degrees outside at the time. It was about 90 degrees in my house. It was rough. And people in Omaha, town up, have it worse than me. Some of them are still without power, and it has been 5 days. And so that's rough. So shout out to the power crews and everything worked to get power back. I think we had 32,000 people without power at the peak here. Omaha had like 200,000. So shout out to all the power crews in this working in the heat and everything. So if you happen to be someone on a power crew listening to this, appreciate what you do. But you guys rock. Thanks for all you do. That's my shout out to power crew workers, which I'm sure makes up a large portion of our audience. But the next scene that we had after Aemond and Vhagar looking over the Torch City, and you're hearing the screams of people, is Aegon, who is healing quite nicely. His burns are not looking nearly as bad. He's looking somewhat passable. The Maester is working on him. Larys comes in and tells them they have to leave the city because Rhaenyra has 3 new dragon riders. She did what they didn't think was possible, and that Aemond lay waste to Sharp Point, and that's what we need to do. And Aegon is just kind of giving up at this point a little bit. He's like, why must we run? Larys says, well, my dude, Aemond is going to kill you. He's pissed off and he's an impetuous little child, essentially. And he's angry. So there's a chance he could come here and just fucking smoke you to secure his place. And because he's lashing out. And Aegon says, oh, don't worry, I'll go out there. I'll sit on the throne. We'll have him arrested. And there's like, okay, well then what are you going to do when Rhaenyra comes in with her 7 dragons and Vhagar's gone? Like you take out Aemond, you have him arrested. Vhagar's just there. He has no right. That's your biggest dragon, your biggest asset. That's not the brightest plan. And Aegon's pissed. He's like, you just want to take me to Essos to live with the goat fuckers. And then he's talking about how he mentions that his dragon's dead, which is the first time that I can remember that we have talked about Sunfyre since that episode. It had kind of, it said that Sunfyre was dead. My understanding was Sunfyre was not confirmed dead, but could be wrong. Based on what Aegon said, Aegon at least believes Sunfyre to be dead in this moment. He says that his dragon's dead. He talks about he says, did you know that my cock exploded, basically? He burned my cock and exploded like bratwurst on the fire, essentially, is what he says. Which is just a wild and unnecessary thing. I don't think Larys cares about his cock. We know Larys is more concerned about his feet and how they fared. So he should have tried to relate to Larys more and get a little bit more sympathy. He needs to know this thing. It's just another sign Aegon knows nothing. He's basically Jon Snow in that regard. And he says that Larys tells him a story. Like he's like, hey, you need to escape, live to see another day, and then you'll rise from the ashes, and the people will love you. And they're going through all the names, and Aegon's like, Larys tells me it'll be Aegon the Rebuilder, and Aegon's like, there'll be Aegon, the realm's delight. And I thought I had mixed feelings on this. It's just like kind of the reminiscing and thinking what could have been. But I do think, I talked about it earlier when I was recapping the earlier episodes, that what we get from Aegon is, even though he is a piece of shit, and we saw that when the episode when he's lashing out at Aemond and he's with his new lickspittle Kingsguard, that he really does just want the people to love him. He wants people to see him as a competent king. And he wants to be loved and appreciated. So I thought that was a little bit touching, like Aegon thinking like of what could have been and what he really wants. Like he wants to be kind of revered by the people, and he doesn't want to be causing them pain or suffering. He wants to be viewed as the realm's delight. So I did kind of like that character development we got from Aegon there. And after this scene is the first Rhaena running through the countryside scene that we got, which she just doesn't give a fuck about her cousins anymore and just bailed on them apparently and let them go out on their own. Then we had the first scene of Ulf is kind of sitting at the table just being a knucklehead. He's just being a knucklehead, and Jace comes in, Jacaerys, who didn't want any of these other, especially bastards, riding dragons, because he thinks that it invalidates his claim to the throne more, right? And kind of invalidates where they sit and where they are. Hugh's trying to kind of manage Ulf, like tell him like, hey, calm the fuck down, man. Let's be chill. Let's be cool. And Ulf just doesn't really care. He ends up being a bumbling idiot, but then ends up being a little bit apologetic because Jace just kind of lays into him and goes off about like not realizing, knowing what they're facing, and Aemond just torch that town, and that's what they're going to go into. And Ulf's just over here being a boob, for lack of a better term. And we get a scene, Rhaenyra's talking with Corlys, talking about what they're up against and needing to take advantage of it. Rhaenyra wants to take on Vhagar. She said, we have the numbers now. And Corlys is cautioning. He's like, hey, you have Alicent's, their other son, with over in Oldstown with the High Towers, which is Darren, who we talked about in previous episodes. He's getting some mentions this season. And he mentions Helena's dragon. And Rhaenyra makes a comment about Helena and Dreamfire and saying that Helena has no taste for riding. But Dreamfire is hatched from the Conqueror's dragon, and I was seeing in the spoilers that I was seeing book readers quote this in line in the book that said that Helena loved riding Dreamfire, and that was one of her enjoyments in life. And so it sounded like this could be a change from the book. I also could have been duped by a post on X. Not everything you read there is true, shockingly. And Corlys is saying that he's going to take his fleet and they're going to rejoin the blockade to kind of reinforce that as shit's about to hit the fan. He can tell he has a feeling for this kind of thing. And he says they renamed his ship, it used to be the Sea Snake, named after himself, that he renamed it to the Queen Who Never Was, and that what he does now, he does for Rhaenys and her dad, which is nice, touching tribute. And the director and writer were talking about after the episode how this was kind of Corlys had always done things for himself and what was best for him. Like, he named his ship after himself. He always put the sea ahead of Rhaenys and would leave her to herself. And now that she's gone, he's realizing what he did and what was really important, and he's making the fight about her and for her. So kind of full circle moment for his character there. I always say that I'm going to do just vibes for these, and then I don't. I just go into everything. But the last thing in this scene, Corlys tells Rhaenyra that the Lannisters are marching for Harrenhal now, and the Lannisters and the Hightowers are marching from Old Town, and she must crush them. And he says there's another player yet to be revealed, which it's not. It's just what she needs to know, because then we nice and subtly cut over to Daemon and him walking out, and Sir Alfred Broom, that Rhaenyra had sent to check in on Daemon, shows up, is talking to Daemon about there's been battles that need fall, and Rhaenyra has just been faltering, and they need a leader of men, and Daemon's a leader of men, and if he declares himself, then his lords will follow him, and Rhaenyra's intentions are good, but what they need in this moment is a king. Some good old-fashioned sexism from Sir Alfred here to Daemon. Sir Simon Strong hears this, and he kind of has a disapproving look on his face that you can see. He's not really vibing with that. He's the one who's constantly been putting Daemon in his place, too, when Daemon's been making comments about being king. He dropped the king consort line on him, along with good old Oscar Tully, who we did not get an appearance from this week, unfortunately. And so that's all we're going to get with Daemon for a little bit. And then we cut to Aemond is walking and talking with his council about Rhaenyra sending boats to collect the bastards with Targaryen blood. And he says that they're going to let no vessel come in or out of King's Landing without inspection. And they're like, dude, that is going to hold up things like a motherfucker. We already have your people are starving here. Now you're going to hold it up longer because you're going to have to inspect everything. And he's like, I don't care. I don't care if it hurts the fishermen. I don't care if it hurts them. It's better than them being dead. So the irony here is that with the delays, they're going to die from starvation, my Lord Dipshit. So no one calls him out on this, of course, because he's out there. And so we then cut to Helena and Alicent having a nice little chat, and Helena's talking about not really understanding why the people are mad at them. They weren't the ones who ordered the blockade, and Alicent's, well, but they think 'cause we're lords that we should be able to stop it. We should be able to fix it. And Helena says, like, I was happier before I was queen. And Alicent's kind of trying to convince her, like, hey, do you want to just run away? Because after Alicent's nice little romp in the forest and her little swim she went on, she has clarity now, and it's pretty much that she doesn't fucking want to be there anymore, and that her life's miserable, and her kids, with the exception of Helena and Darren, it sounds like, are little pieces of shit. So, but she does still have the sympathy for Aegon. Aemon comes in and just basically demands that Helena fly Dreamfire into battle. Helena says she doesn't want to burn anyone, and Amon's like, that wasn't a question, starts dragging her away, and Alicent starts intervening and stopping him and saying, like, all he does is rain ruin and death because you're pissed off and you just have your temper. And so all you're doing is just bringing more chaos and death to the realm. And he's going to corrupt Helena by trying to bring her into this. And it's their lives and Amon's like yelling, he's like, it's our lives that are threatened. Do you not care about that? Would you not have us prevail? And Alicent's telling him, like, not like this, not like this. And Aemon relents and goes off for the moment. And then Alicent walks away. And we got Criston Cole just sniffing the handkerchief that Alicent had given him as her, what they call it, not a token. We're going to go with token. That's not the word that I'm looking for. But privilege? Nope. Honor? Nope. The fuck is it called? I don't know. But a little handkerchief with an A embossed on it. Embossed? Embroidered is the word that I'm looking for. It's a struggle, guys. Like 4 hours of sleep. Lo siento. And Gwaine pulls a sword on him and just has a sword to his neck. Like, do you not know nothing of your oath? And I can send you to the wall for what you're doing. You're breaking your oath. And Cole's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, she has saved my life twice. She saved me from myself, and she's the beacon that I follows now. And he gave such a touching speech about how he's banging Gwaine's sister that Gwaine has to lower his sword and sit next to him and commiserate with him a little bit about. Cole says, well, now we're going to march to our annihilation, and that to die will be a kind of relief. So now we have depressed, moping, suicidal Cole, thinking about kind of how he's fucked up in his life with all of his things and everything with Alicent. Probably reflecting a little bit on Rhaenyra too, and everything that went down with that. And I don't know, it was a little bit of a weird thing because Gwaine, they've had the things that Gwaine was picking up on the Alicent and Cole vibes way earlier. And now it just seems aggressive and weird that Cole's sitting there. I mean, it is weird that he's just sniffing the handkerchief, that there's no way it even remotely smells like whether she had perfume or anything at this point through all the battles that he's been and sweat and rode and all that shit. It is kind of creepy, but I don't think it's draw your sword on the man level of creepy. And then we get to cut to Tyland mud wrestling, and he's kind of getting his ass kicked by Shiraku Lohar is the full name, the Admiral Lohar. They're mud wrestling and punching each other, knocking them out, and then he's just getting his ass kicked. But then he gets a little bit loose, sweeps Lohar's legs out, gives her a nice punch in the face, and she just kind of smiles and laughs, says she's impressed with him, will attest to his wealth as the ambassador and agree to his request and go fight. She says after dinner, and she says, have you never ever tasted the flesh of your enemies? And he's like, I have not, and I will not. And she acts like she's gonna be all pissed. You're rejecting my hospitality? And then laughs and says she jests, and kind of a little bit of levity is what the director said. They were really excited to introduce this character this episode and bring the levity to here because it gets so serious. And there was zero part of me that felt like that's what this finale episode needed. So I get this character is going to have a part to play in what's to come in the Battle of the Gullet, but that's what I've seen because they were talking about it constantly on every post, whether it's book readers saying specifics like a bunch of dickheads or just in general comments about why don't we get the Battle of the Gullet this season, and which sounds like we'll get it probably episode 1 or 2 of season 3. I get that this character is important, but I did not need that interjected into this episode. There are enough other things they're setting up and building to and kind of getting that drum roll of everything coming together. I didn't need that. It wasn't necessary to me. Then we have a scene where Jace is being all pouty and mopey, emo. He's got My Chemical Romance on in the background. And Bela comes up and kind of has a conversation with him, trying to help him and basically saying, like, you're angry. And he's like, but aren't you? These other people are riding dragons. And it just taints us. And she's like, hey, that doesn't take away anything what we are. It doesn't make who we are anything less. It doesn't make who you are anything less. And he's like, well, yeah, but I'm a bastard. This has been under question forever. People always made comments. I heard the mutterings, my hair. And she's like, it doesn't make you any less. It doesn't make your parentage any less. It doesn't make who you are, what you're heir to any less. If you think it does, then prove you're worthy. Take your place at your mother's side. And then we get another cut. Rhaena's just shivering in the field at night. And then it was 2 seconds. Then we're cut to Tyland at the dinner. And Shiraku Lohar is saying she'll sail with Tyland. And she said the sea snake will rule to the day they meet again. So obviously some history with the Triarchy and specifically Admiral Lohar and the sea snake. Then she tells Tyland he's attractive and he's proven his virility. And she wants to have children by him. And so we thought, well, she's going to want him to fuck. And then she says she wants him to fuck all of her wives. She says, well, how many are there? Then it cuts away. Haha, levity. Fucking multiple women. Great. Hilarious. Then we get Rhaenyra having dinner with the dragon riders. Ulf is just being oafish and just a little like gluttonous and just calling for more birds and to eat. And Rhaenyra's trying to give like a big speech saying that what the responsibility they have and what they need to do, saying that she expects them all to serve with give their fealty, serve with respect, serve her well, and then they'll become knights of the realm. She says that Corlys is right. Like, we can't wait. We need to strike. We have the advantage. We need to end this war. In 2 days' time, you're all going to fly off, and we're going to take it to the bannermen of the Greens, the strongholds of the usurper. They got to break their will. And Bela is kind of hesitant about this. I really like Bela's character this season. I don't think we got enough of seeing what she could do. And I really liked her character. We had the moments when like she clocked Cole and kind of rides above him into the tree line, reports back. She's brave, she's strong, and she has a little bit of a conscience, we see in this moment too. And so she's hesitant. She's like, we're just going to kill so many innocents. And aren't we worried about that? And Jace says, hey, it's hard, but it's what needs to be done. Jace is a lot more cold, and especially he's bitter about everything going on with Alan, Ulf, and Hugh. Alan just gets lumped in with these others, and Hugh is just so calm and mellow as well, but Ulf is just a lot. Like, Ulf, you kind of hope he just gets smoked. Because Ulf has been a little bit of a dick to Alan about things and saying, we'll see who the coward is when we get out there, and then yells again for more birds. And Rhaenyra says, a knight comports himself with grace at the table. And he's like, well, best make me a knight then. And he's just being a mouthy little bitch. Maester comes in, tells Rhaenyra they got a message from Harrenhal. Sir Simon Strong kind of suspects treachery. Daemon has raised his army. Rhaenyra says, well, I won't allow that. Calls for Alan to go with her, so you can tell who her favorite is. The one that was chosen by the dragon sought at him out in Silverwing. And then we get a cut to Daemon and Harrenhal. He's laying in bed. Alice Rivers kind of leads him out to the God's Wood and kind of has a whole conversation with him about how he's grown. How first when he joined there, he wanted to be a fist, and she thinks he's discovered now that the world just can't be governed as easy as he wants it to. And she talks about kind of the supernatural a little bit, alludes to that, and says she's surprised he doesn't scoff. And Damon's like, well, I'm not inclined to scoff anymore of this. He's seen the visions. He's seen what's come to play there. And she's like, good. And she asks if he wishes to learn what is given to him, and then kind of encourages him. He touches the Godswood tree, which is bleeding, and then he gets this vision. in this vision, which I haven't read the book, I don't know if this vision is from the book. He sees the three-eyed raven, he sees the Night King, he sees slain dragons, slain bodies, and corpses laying about in blood. He sees the red comet from Game of Thrones. He sees Dany's 3 eggs, Daenerys's 3 eggs with flames. And then Dany is what I typed in my notes, but for some reason it autocorrected to and then Dong. And then Daenerys with the 3 dragons sitting in the desert. And then he sees someone on the Iron Throne and he walks up to it and he sees that it's Rhaenyra sitting on the throne. I thought that's where the vision was going to end. But then you have Helaena pop up and she tells him it's all a story. He's just one part in it and he knows his part. Then he wakes up and you hear Helena's voice still say, you know what you must do. And then it cuts to her on the balcony. So I kind of got in this that Helaena has a little bit of that magic in her too. And she is communicating through these visions and everything. Like Alice Rivers is kind of influencing these in Daemon's mind and playing tricks with them. Helaena is able to kind of influence that as well. Again, didn't read the book, so maybe that's explained more in the book. So, lo siento. But then Aemon approaches Helaena on the balcony, because it cuts to Helaena right from that, and is basically talking to her and saying, hey, our mother's not a dragon rider. She doesn't really care. She doesn't really understand because of all of that, and he really needs her to come with him to Harrenhal so they can let their enemies see that they'll answer outrage with outrage, that they're going to take care of business. And Helena's just like, oh, if you refuse me, are you just going to burn me like you did Aegon? He's like, I would never. Yeah, how dare you? I wouldn't do that. And she's like, hey, I saw it all. I saw you burn Aegon. I saw you watch him fall. I know. And she's like, guess what? Aegon's going to be king again. He's going to sit on a wooden throne. And she says that Aemon will be dead and swallowed up in the God's eye and never seen again. I don't remember if I mentioned this in the dream. Daemon saw himself drowning in the dream. So some significance there, potentially for the future. But he sees himself drowning, whether it's drowning in his own ambition, drowning in his action, or a literal drowning that potentially could be in his future. I don't know. And she said that Aemon will be swallowed up in the God's eye and never seen again. Aemon says he could have her killed. And she's just like, well, okay, wouldn't change anything. And then we get Rhaenyra and Alan flying to Harrenhal. But we don't get any Alan in Harrenhal action. He kind of stays circling up above on Silver Ring. Rhaenyra lands. Syrax, her strong, takes her in. She just sees all these men that had been camped there and all the lords that come to Daemon. She walks in. No one bends a knee. No one seems to... They glance at her. No one really seems to react. And then Daemon starts walking up to her. They kind of part, let Daemon enter. And Daemon starts speaking to... Well, he says that all those men there are sworn to him. And Rhaenyra loudly asks to who he's sworn. Because this is a big telling moment in front of all the men that have sworn to him. And trying to see where Daemon lies after being non-responsive and kind of going rogue for this entire fucking season. Daemon starts speaking to her in High Valyrian, saying, hey, the world, like he's changed from his vision, saying the world isn't what we thought it was. The war's just beginning. Winter is coming with darkness and doom. Rhaenyra tells him that he's sounding like Viserys because of the stories that he would tell her about the prince that was promised. She doesn't drop the prince that was promised to Daemon and A Song of Ice and Fire. But Daemon's saying, we can't withstand it. Somehow we must. And then he says out loud so everyone can hear and understand, he says, the world's only hope is a leader that can unite it. And his brother chose her. And then he bends the knee to her and says that she is the true queen, Jesus, and him and all the men are meant to serve her until death or the end of their story. And then everyone starts taking a knee and bowing to Rhaenyra. And then Daemon just gives a speech to the men, gets them fucking fired up for war, says there will be no mercy. They fight for their queen, and they get pumped up, and they're cheering to war. And then we get one of my favorite moments in this episode is a conversation between Corlys and Adam. We've seen Adam, he's always just been he seemed strong, like things aren't bothering him. He's been kind of cold to Corlys, like Corlys had acknowledged that he saved his life, but nothing more. And he gives Adam these promotions, and Adam accepts it, but it's kind of with a little bit of a peace and calm and just not really any emotion to it. And Rhaenys had tried to have been getting Corlys to give him the recognition that he deserved, even though he was a bastard. And Adam's kind of indicated, and he has with his conversations with Alan too, and then with Corlys last week as well, when Corlys was like, hey, maybe try going for a dragon, that Adam isn't about that. He's not looking for handouts. He's just looking to do his job, do his thing. But Corlys is having a conversation with Adam, saying, like, we're sailing out to join this blockade, and we're likely to find ourselves in peril. He wants them to be in good terms. Adam's just kind of curt with him and silent, and he's like, well, is anything wrong? We're doing, I'm doing what he said. You put me in this position. I'm doing my thing. Corlys tells him, like, the men find you distant, and that he can't lead if he doesn't inspire, which is true of any leaders. Like, if you can't inspire the people around you, if you can't gain their respect, then it's going to be so much harder to lead, and you're not really a true leader. You're just someone there. You're a boss. You're not a leader. As cliche as it sounds, you're a boss, not a leader. And Corlys, and he's like, Adam was kind of like, I didn't ask to lead. You put me in here. I'm doing what I can. Corlys says, many aspired to this role. And so basically you should be thankful. And Adam's like, okay, just calm, saying, I'll try to improve myself. And Corlys is like, hey, I'm just meaning to help you. And Adam here just kind of goes off on him and is like, do you know what it was like to grow up without a father, and then to be starving and be sitting on the streets and seeing you walk into market with your heir that you're chosen, you're a natural born son, along with your heir and his sister, and then you're just in your furs and you're buying sweets and the finest of meats, and we're here starving, hoping for bread, and then he died, your heir died, and then his sister before him, and then now you want to see, now that all your options are gone, now you try to come back to me, to your crumbs, and saying that, and now you remember that we exist. And it's like, I'm going to deny any offers of help that you give me. And if I survive this war, I'll continue as I began, alone. And I felt like this was just a very powerful speech from Adam, and kind of showing how he felt, just cast aside by Corlys, not acknowledging him until it's then convenient for Corlys, and Corlys feels like he doesn't have any other options. He's running out of all his heirs. Everyone's turning him down. Baela's turning him down. And just kind of reaching out to and trying to connect with Adam, because Adam saved his life, and then all of this, and Adam just kind of rejecting that. And I felt like that was a really powerful speech and a powerful moment of the episode. And then guess what? We get Rhaena running through a field again. And then we have a little clip of Mysaria and Rhaenyra talking, and Mysaria saying the gods are favoring you. You have the keys to victory in your hands. And Rhaenyra, this scene more to show that, I don't know. I didn't love this scene. Now, like I said, I didn't read the book, so I don't know what Rhaenyra is like in the books. But in the last scene we had with Rhaenyra, the dinner scene, she is determined. She's like, we are going to do this. This is what we need to do to get the upper hand and make our move. Like, this is what's for the good. And now she's having the conversation with Mysaria, and talking about how it seems like she's hesitant to take this action. She's hesitant to end the lives of thousands of people. Mysaria is telling her it's necessary and you must prevail. Like, that's what's best for the realm. You need to win if that's what it takes. That's what you got to do. And Rhaenyra's like, okay, but who pays the price? And we're really making Rhaenyra a sympathetic character is what we're going for. That we're really trying to make the case that she is the good one. The blacks are the good ones. The greens are the usurpers, the bad ones. We're really, their whole marketing ploy for this, whose side will you choose? They're trying, in my opinion, they're basically making it seem like if you're not Team Black, you're kind of a piece of shit. And I don't know. Like I said, I didn't read the book. I don't know what book Rhaenyra is like, but it's, if that's not what she's like, then I feel like they're going heavy-handed with it. Like, we're making it clear Rhaenyra is who we're supposed to be rooting for in this, which I don't mind. If it's cut and dry, it's cut and dry. That's how it is. I mean, the books is ultimately Fire and Blood. It's about the Targaryens, House of the Dragon. The House of the Dragon is the Targaryens. That's who we're following. And we have a scene here. Rhaenyra's, she's in bed, and her guard comes and gets her, takes her to the library, says she needs to go, and Alicent's there. And they have a whole speech back and forth where Alicent's saying she was mistaken. She thinks she resented Rhaenyra for knowing what she wanted, and that she only knew what was expected of her, and the duty, she felt like she had the sense of duty. She feels like she lost her way. Rhaenyra starts like calling her out on having a lover, which was not explicitly said. It's Criston Cole, but she calls her out on having a lover when she tells her, "You made virtue your banner." And Alicent's like, "Yeah, I did. I clung to it because you disdained it so much, and I felt like I had to go the opposite direction." And they just have this passionate conversation, and both of them are kind of shedding a tear in the end. And Alicent's kind of telling her that she's like, "I got away. I went outside the city walls, and that was the first time I felt peace. And that's just what I want. I just want to get away from it all. I want to run away." And Rhaenyra's like, "It's too late. You started this. You started marching in battles. Blood has been shed. You made the plan. You said Viserys changed his mind. And so basically this is your fault." And Alicent says she only did what she thought Viserys wanted. Rhaenyra's tells her, "Just go wander in the wilderness. What does that have to do with me? Or you think you're going to be absolved of your guilt? You can't. It's too late for all of that." And Alicent tells her, she says that, the whole thing, she's like, "Viserys, your father, he never stopped loving your mother. Like, he loved me in a way, but it's never the same." She's like, "Aemon will soon fly out with Vhagar to the Riverlands, and Helaena will be kind of sitting, the ruling queen, in his stead. And so she's like, I will see the guards throw down their swords. Helaena, I'll let them bring you in. There will be no bloodshed. You'll be seen as a conqueror. We'll have you sit on the throne, and then we can end the war. Like, I'll sneak you in. I'll get everyone to kind of calm down, and you can come in, sit on the throne, and it'll be over." And Rhaenyra is a little bit hesitant. She is like, "Well, what about Aegon?" And Alicent is saying like, "Well, he's broken beyond recognition, basically. Like, he's not a threat anymore. He has many faults, but he'll heed me. He'll listen to me if I tell him that you're going to take over, and that's what's best." And Rhaenyra gets pissed here. She's like, "You're still just trying to justify it. You still think Aegon can be saved. If I take the throne, I need to do it basically with definitively. I can't leave any doubts. I need to take Aegon's head. People need to see me take Aegon's head, and that's what needs to happen. You know this, and now you need to choose." So she says, "Are you going to shrink from what you have set out to do, or are you going to see this through and make your sacrifice?" And then she says, "A son for a son" again, which, yes, in a way, but you already killed her grandson as well. Granted, not you, Daemon kind of asking with the blood and cheese, those two people. And Alicent is tearful, and she nods, and Rhaenyra is tearful as well. And she tells Alicent that she's much changed. And Alicent tells her, in 3 days' time, come to the Red Keep, fly to the Red Keep, take the throne. Rhaenyra's like, "Hey, history's going to paint you a villain, a coward, a cold queen." Alicent says she knows who she is now. She doesn't care. She's going to walk in the open fields and be free. And she asks Rhaenyra to come with her. And Rhaenyra tells her, like, "I can't. My path is here. It was decided long ago." And then we get a slow motion montage that closes the episode. We get Hugh, Alan, and Ulf getting mail put on them, basically suiting up to go out on their dragons. We get Rhaena dirty and running again through the field for half a second. And then we get Hightower soldiers marching to battle with Darren on his dragon flying above. We don't see Darren at all, but we see the dragon flying above them with the Hightowers. We see the Greybeards from Winterfell that we talked about and learned were going to be set in the beginning of episode 1 of this season. We see them march crossing the Twins. We see the Lannisters marching with Harrenhal out off in the distance. We see Daemon suited up in his armor, marching out, looking over his men encamped in the valley. We see Alicent kind of walking away slowly from behind. We see Tyland on the ship with Admiral Lohar, kind of in stormy seas, it looks like. And you see Adam and Corlys in their armor on their longboat going up to the ship to head out. And then you see Rhaena coming up on a dragon, and this dragon looks evil as shit. Badass looking dragon, but it's like kind of modeled. Its wings look like it's curled back, and it's just sweet looking dragon. But then you see Otto Hightower in a cage, some kind of cell somewhere, which was interesting because we haven't seen Otto since like episode 3 when Aegon sent him away. And then you see Alicent walking off looking for Lorne. You see Aegon and Larys in a cart riding away from King's Landing. So they fled King's Landing. So there's one thing that Alicent had promised Rhaenyra that's now off the table. And then we end with a shot of Alicent looking out over the sea from a cliff, and then Rhaenyra on the balcony looking out, and the shot from Rhaenyra is behind the cabinets. And there was one, I'll insert it in here, a tweet that I saw that said, it's showing Rhaenyra crushed by the weight of history, because it's with the shelves with all the scrolls behind her is where you're getting the camera angle, and Alicent standing finally free amongst the sky and sea. And I thought that was interesting. This kind of goes back to when I talk about how beautifully shot and directed this series is and this show is, whether it's intentional or not, and I think it is. These people are far smarter than I am, and they're putting these subtle nods and hints into it and telling a larger story with their camera and how they're framing and shooting this. And I thought it was neat, kind of a reverse of what their characters had been like before. I think it was either the end of season 1 or beginning of this season, earlier, when you have Alicent kind of closed in by the city in King's Landing and Rhaenyra out looking out over the sea at Dragonstone. So but then it just went to credits, like it's seeming like you're getting this build towards a massive battle, which it is. It's just not going to be this season. It's not going to be for 2 years. So this episode leaves you a little bit with blue balls. And that's probably what I'm going to name this episode. I can't just do blue balls. So it's going to be like, our dragon eggs are blue, something like that. Our dragon balls are blue seems too graphic. And I think that's how you get on the weird niche porn feeds. But it did leave you with a little bit of blue balls. I think this is saying that season 3 is going to start off with a bang, so I am pumped for that. There's this wait is going to suck. And if this was in the middle of the season, this would have been a fantastic episode. I just feel like for the finale, yes, it is building to something epic. Yes, it was a fantastic setup episode. Yes, a lot did still happen, but it didn't feel like a season finale episode to me. It felt like either a penultimate episode building to something massive or a mid-season episode. So still, I really like season 2 of House of the Dragon. This didn't tarnish it too much for me. I'd give the season overall probably 3.5 out of 5 stars. I thought we're telling a lot of stories. The one complaint that I did see, which is ultimately true, it's the end of season 1. It's like, oh shit, we're preparing for war. And the end of season 2, it's, oh shit, we're preparing for war. There's just, the stakes are a little higher and the sides are built up a little more. So I think season 3 is going to be the big balls to the wall action season. I think this season overall was a success. we're going on an hour on this one. I thought it was going to be shorter, but I did a full recap instead of just vibes and did lots of talk about other things. So thank you for those of you who have watched or listened to all of these recaps, House of the Dragon. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you haven't alienated listeners who are like, I came here for a musical podcast, and you have done musical things like 2 out of the last 10 episodes. I get it. I was going to try to do 2 musical reviews here. I don't like just doing reviews on my own for musicals. TV shows, these recaps, I'll do. Musicals, I like having someone to bounce off on, get other opinions, and recording and scheduling that. Life has been crazy. Work has been crazy for me. I haven't been able to dedicate as much time to this as I want to and feel like I need to do it right on those. So I have been taking a little bit of the easy way out with doing the recaps of House of the Dragon, but appreciate to all of you. They're some of our most viewed episodes on YouTube. So thank you to everyone who watches, listens, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Thank you all. You all rock. Thank you for tuning in to 8 weeks of this and 3 years, almost 100 episodes of going down. So, as always, thank you all. Love you all. Keep doing what you're doing. Have a fantastic August. And don't forget to go down once more. Later.